Hi friends, I'm Anne-Marie.
And I'm Gabe. How are your listening skills in English?
Listening in any language can be a challenge. You have to focus on the other person, understand their verbal and nonverbal cues, and respond in the right way.
That's right, and listening and comprehending what a native speaker says is an important part of learning English. After all, how can you have a conversation if you don't understand what the other person is saying?
So today, let's look at 4 tips that can help you improve your listening skills in English.
Our first tip is listen to the same content multiple times.
Not everyone has a native English-speaking friend to practice their listening skills with, and that's why this tip is so useful.
That's right. You can use this tip while you are practicing your listening skills alone with a podcast, music, TED Talk, or any other audio-only material.
Here's how it works. Choose the material you're going to be listening to. Listen through the first time, and here's the hard part. Don't stop to look up words, use your dictionary, or take breaks.
This is important so that you get the general flow of the material. While you're listening through the first time, you should be trying to catch the general idea of what is being said, even if you don't understand everything.
This is where listening for keywords and concepts comes in handy, but that's a topic for another video.
Right. Okay, so the second time you listen, you should pause when there is a word you don't know or a sentence you don't understand. Do some research if you need to, or just rewind a little to see if you can figure things out based on the context.
After doing that, listen a third time. Once again, don't stop, but specifically listen for those things you looked up.
Listening to something 3 times sounds time-consuming, but we're not suggesting you do this all at once.
Right. Listening to the same piece of content 3 times should actually replace 3 different pieces of content.
You'll find over time that by using this method, not only will your listening skills improve, but your comprehension skills will as well. So, give it a try.
Let's move on to tip number 2. We need to talk about practicing with a native speaker.
I think everyone knows that practicing English with a native speaker face-to-face is one of the best ways to improve your English.
And participating in active conversation does this naturally, so you've got to find yourself a conversation partner.
But how do you go about doing that? There's a right way and there's a wrong way. And speaking from personal experience, I've been on the other end of both sides before.
Me too. So let's talk about it. Where do you find a native English speaker to practice with? And where should you not find one?
Well, it's important to realize not every foreigner walking around wants to help you practice your English. Often they are busy or just not interested in becoming an English teacher.
Right. So finding someone on the street and just trying to use all the English you know isn't a good idea.
Being friendly with foreigners, of course, is totally fine. And if your goal is to genuinely be friends with a native English speaker and you want to get to know them and spend time with them, that's one thing.
But it's another thing to use people for language practice. And believe me, foreigners know the difference. I've been approached by people before on the street who wanted to practice English.
That happens to a lot of foreigners. Some people are just being friendly.
True, but I don't like being approached in a place where I can't leave if I feel uncomfortable, like the MRT. And I don't like being asked personal questions by strangers, like, do you live at this stop, or how tall are you? That's just creepy.
This is not the right way to get English practice, friends. You could ask a foreigner you see, can I practice my English with you? But most of the time, if you see them out, they probably are already busy.
So what do you do instead? I recommend language exchange. This is an agreement between 2 people, and the goal is to help both of them learn their target language.
You can find language exchanges in lots of different places. Facebook often has a language exchange page for your city. Many colleges and universities have programs, and there are many forums online as well where people make listings.
Maybe you aren't willing to teach someone your language, or maybe you just aren't good at it. So what's your next step?
Well, ask yourself how important speaking and listening skills are to you. If they are super important, then it's time to treat them like you would any other skill and be willing to pay someone to teach you.
That means hiring a tutor. This doesn't have to be expensive, but remember, you do get what you pay for.
Not everyone can do this, but that's okay. There are other ways to improve your listening skills.
So here's a super easy tip that you can put into practice right now. Are you ready? Watch the speaker's mouth.
That's right. All you have to do is watch the person's mouth who is talking.
Why would you want to do this? Well, studies have shown that when babies are learning to speak, this is what they do.
That's because there's a right way and a wrong way to hold your mouth when pronouncing things.
And this is one reason your pronunciation might sound different from a native English speaker's. You could be holding your mouth in a way that is correct in your native language, but it isn't correct for pronouncing English.
So, one way to fix this problem is to start watching the way native English speakers hold their mouths when they talk. This can be done in daily conversation or while you're in English class.
You can then practice copying the mouth movements of the speaker yourself. This is going to naturally improve your pronunciation. But how does this improve your listening skills?
Sometimes language learners have a difficult time understanding what a native speaker is saying the first time. Watching them speak is one way to overcome this. You might catch what they're trying to say without hearing anything at all.
This works especially well after you have been practicing this skill during your TV time. Mouth movement in regards to pronunciation is generally pretty consistent.
So what are you waiting for? Start practicing this skill today and see if it helps you improve your listening in English.
Are you ready for today's final tip?
We're about to say something that might surprise you. Are you ready? Okay, here it is. In English, not every word in a sentence is important.
It's true. You can generally understand the idea of what someone is trying to say just by listening for key words. So let's talk about that.
As a language learner, if you try to listen to every single word that someone is saying while you're still learning, you're going to get frustrated.
Yeah, it's impossible to know all the vocabulary. So instead, listen for key words.
A key word has more value in a sentence. It usually signals context or importance to the listener.
So, to find keywords, first focus on the nouns. Proper nouns like names and places will tell you the who and where of the sentence. Dates and times will help provide context for the sentence.
You also need to focus on verbs. They will help you understand the actions and movement of what the speaker is trying to communicate.
Once you feel that you can always find the nouns and verbs in every sentence you hear, you can move on to secondary keywords.
These would be adverbs and adjectives. Adverbs are going to tell you the conditions and extent of the action. Adjectives are going to tell you more specifics about your topic of discussion.
But make sure you're understanding the basic structure of sentences and are able to identify nouns and verbs before you move on to adverbs and adjectives. By doing this, you're making listening in English much easier on yourself.
Are you good at finding keywords, friends? Put this tip and the other tips we talked about today into practice. See if it helps your listening skills in English.
Listening to native English speakers can be difficult and tiring, but it gets easier and easier as you practice more and more. Drop a comment below with what tip you found the most helpful, and we'll see you next time.